Hey, welcome to this conversation. This is Andy Mason, and I have this is not a studio, this call with me, Benji Nolot. Benji's a friend, and he leads a company called Exodus Cry, and I want you to hear the stories of what they're doing in the world today and getting significant results in this battle against trafficking and human exploitation today, 2022. Some phenomenal results. But let's just go back a step and just say, Benji, thank you so much for taking the time to join me in this recording. And could you just introduce yourself in terms of what is Exodus Cry and what's your role with this company? And then we're going to jump straight into some of the results and then the backstory.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Andy. It's really an honor. I started Exodus Cry about 15 years ago to focus on the issue of sex trafficking. So growing up, I had felt like a real call to the arts. I had a scholarship to the Art Institute of Southern California, ended up opting to go the route of film. And in 2007, I discovered this issue of human trafficking. And when I discovered that, I felt like this issue kind of married these two passions. One, to help address the issue of sex trafficking, and on the other, to combine that with my work in film. And that's really how kind of things got started with Exodus Cry, which has grown over the last 15 years into what I believe is a very formidable force in the world, addressing the issue of sexual exploitation in a number of different fronts. So most recently, some of you may have heard in the news, I know you've heard this story, Andy, that Visa, Mastercard, and Discover have severed their ties with the world's largest porn company, Mindgeek, and some of their subsidiary companies like Pornhub, and essentially they own 90% of all online pornography. They have severed these companies' ability to advertise, which is 50% of their revenue. And so what we're currently seeing just in the work that we're doing is pretty profound.
I'm just loving that. So I hear a lot of people talk about, I'm fighting trafficking. I want to get involved with that. The difference is you're actually doing something and seeing results. So to hear that companies of that size are paying attention is profound. So number one is well done.
Thank you.
And number two is, tell me a little bit about what does the work of Exodus Cry do? And how did you get this level of results where the number one company promoting the exploitation of women in porn, promotion of porn, effectively the funding stream of that is being cut off and they're going to shrivel up and die? How do you do that? How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, Exodus Cry as an organization, we combat commercial sexual exploitation, human trafficking, in two primary ways: through our abolition work. It's our work to kind of pull it up by the root, bring an end to it, and we address that side of it through social and legal reform. And then we do the intervention and outreach work, was all the work that we do to bring people out of those situations of exploitation, assist them in their path to recovery. So just considering the work that we're doing on the abolition side, we really took inspiration from William Wilberforce and his fight to end slavery during the 1800s. During that time, as when slavery was the transatlantic slave trade was prominent, the pro-slavery movement had erected this cover narrative about slavery that caused society to either openly approve of slavery and promote it, or just kind of tacitly accept it as part of our society. Well, Wilberforce, through his encounter with different individuals, abolitionists, discovered the real palpable injustice that slavery was. So he saw the deeper truth of what was actually going on. Now, he felt like at that time, oh my God, if I just tell Parliament what's going on, we'll abolish this right away.
Yeah.
So he went out and he developed this legislation to abolish slavery. He told Parliament this is what's going on, and they basically laughed him out of the room. And at that moment, he realized that he could not end the system of slavery until he had shifted the mindset that fueled it. So for the next 46 years, he made a very aggressive effort to shift the locus of thought and the mass consciousness of society regarding the issue of slavery, exposing society to the deeper truth, displacing the cover narrative of what this actually is, that eventually then opened the doors for the legislation that abolished slavery throughout the British Empire, emancipated the slaves. So when Eric Metaxas talks about Wilberforce in his book that he wrote, Amazing Grace, which is a great biography on Wilberforce, he said the thing that made him the greatest reformer in the history of the planet is not that he vanquished slavery, it's that he vanquished the mindset that permitted slavery for millennia. Yeah. So that's a huge part of the work that we do on the abolition side of this equation is work, the social reform work. It's raising awareness. It's exposing people to the deeper truth of what's really going on, displacing the cover narrative of the commercial sex industry that wants to promote prostitution and pornography as something sexually liberating and empowering. And so our work is to expose the deeper truth of what this system actually is, what's actually going on, in order to shift mindsets to pave the way for impact in laws and different forms of social impact. With regards to what's happening now with, as you mentioned, Pornhub and their parent company, Mindgeek, is the result of a campaign that we started at the beginning of 2020 called Trafficking Hub. And this campaign was taking issue with Pornhub's model for distributing pornography. So basically, is it okay if I jump into this, or you want to?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So basically what happened is Pornhub had created this user-based upload model of pornography, hosting and distributing this content to the masses. But they didn't have any kind of effective moderation system. So videos of real abuse, trafficking, rape, revenge porn, child exploitation, all kinds of videos of non-consensual videos, videos of real crimes were being uploaded. And then those videos were being monetized through ads. And then they made it virtually impossible for people who were trying to get those videos taken down. They made it extremely difficult to get the videos taken down. So essentially, Pornhub had become a crime scene. Pornhub was a site that was infested with criminal level videos, and nobody was doing anything about it. This is the most profound thing to me, is so many times in my own observation of situations where there's, exploitation happening, it's just happening because nobody's done anything to stop it.
Because good people are silent. This passive majority that simply, I think it's between 3 to 15% of any population, that's all it takes to change the narrative of what is okay and what is not okay. And so what I'm hearing is like, you kind of suddenly, that this is not okay. The difference, Benji, is that you did something. This film guy, this arts guy suddenly has this moment in his life where he's like, I have this mission in life, just like Wilberforce did. And you realize I can't just wave a sign and say, you shouldn't do this. There's a narrative that people have bought into that's made it okay. And then there's a funding mechanism that's empowering it, and it's getting this massive cycle. And so how did you then dismantle this? Like, what did you do to practically say, hey, people, this is not okay? And you're just some Californian film guy.
Yeah. Well, just to your point, I think you're either an activist or you're an inactivist. And I think there's enough issues currently facing us in our world where we all need to be activated into the work of helping to make the world a better place. The way I think about it is that every decision that I make is voting for the kind of world I want my children to inherit.
Really good.
And so that fuels, guides, compels the work that I'm doing to address pornography. The world's largest porn site had become, as I said, a a crime scene infested with all these videos. It was exploiting so many people's lives. And there's a recurring trauma to those that are the victims of these videos appearing online. And that side of it is horrible. And so for us, we felt like the first thing is just to expose what's happening.
Yeah.
I have a colleague that had done a deep investigation of Pornhub. She wrote an op-ed for the Washington Examiner called "It's Time to Shut Down Pornhub," unpacking everything that they were doing and everything that was happening with their site. And that article went viral, and partly because Pornhub had endeared themselves to the culture. They had projected themselves as this cheeky, pop culture chic kind of brand. They had ads in Times Square. They were at New York Fashion Week. They have an apparel line, and they were trying to make porn something integrated into the culture that would remove the stigma and just make it something that's, oh, this is all just socially acceptable. And we all, porn can be a part of all of our lives. And look how great this is. And we're all sexually liberated and empowered. And the reality was, there's so many videos on their site of people being raped. There are people underage, non-consensual videos. So when we took aim at them, I think it really struck a nerve in the culture of like, oh my God, I've been led to believe that this is this, but it's actually this. That's what I talk about, displacing the cover narrative with the deeper truth. And so my work as a documentarian is inherently tied in with that reality of trying to help bring people below the level of consciousness where they live their normal lives and help them to see something that creates a paradigm shift and a transformational experience to change their way of being in the world.
Yeah.
And when this article went out, it struck a nerve, went viral, and we launched a petition out of that to shut down Pornhub. And that petition quickly got 2 million signatures.
Wow.
2 million signatures. And so, which, is massive for a petition. And so out of that, we launched this short animated video called, it was basically about this story of trafficking going on Pornhub. And that video is one of the most viral videos of all time, got 33 million views. Wow. Across our social platforms. And then that connected us with Nick Kristof, a journalist from the New York Times, who wrote a piece called "The Children of Pornhub." When that came out, it once again opened up the story to a much larger audience. And then we put forth our demands that Pornhub remove the download feature, that they get rid of all the non-verified videos on their website, a whole list of things. And to our shock and amazement, Pornhub began to actually respond to some of these things. So they deleted 80% of their website.
Wow.
The credit card companies, the major credit card companies, Discovery, Mastercard, and Visa, pulled out. So you could no longer use a credit card to access the pornography on the site. That was roughly 50% of their revenue, the other 50% coming from these ads.
So they drop 80% of their content, which it was predominantly illegal content to start with. Number two, there's a immediate, I'm just listening to the shrewd approach of how to go about something, that this is not okay. It is not okay. So I can't just say it's not okay. Then how do I go about that in a shrewd way, which Wilberforce did in the Abolition of Society, which now today, a few hundred years, it's like, of course. But back then it was the same thing. There was this narrative that clouded people's thinking. They thought it was okay. It's like, no, this is not okay. There's people being killed, taken advantage of. And so one, that's not okay. This is illegal. They've got to stop that. Number two, it dried up the funding because of social pressure on these big companies. Then tell me more.
Yeah, it was really remarkable to see the kind of substantive changes that were beginning to happen. I mean, the download feature on their website, removing that, it disrupted their entire model for how they became what they were. And so we obviously encouraged by these developments, and then a number of lawsuits have been launched against them. Just one company, one legal firm has, I think, 70 plus lawsuits, individual lawsuits going against Pornhub. So they are, about a month
From individuals that were exploited.
Correct. Yeah. They're so about a month ago, their CEO and their COO stepped down. There's rumors that about 70% of their staff were laid off. And then last week, Visa, Mastercard, and Discover said, we're not going to facilitate advertisements to be on any of your sites either. So just to quantify the impact of that, again, Mindgeek owns 90% of all online pornography. So Visa, Mastercard, and Discover made this huge decision to sever their ability to advertise, for advertisers to advertise on their sites, which is, again, 50% of their revenue stream. So this is a massive development that has just occurred. And yeah, we're really encouraged by seeing what's happening.
So firstly, well done. Congratulations. That's in terms of your mandate and what you're doing as a company, the results are now astounding. Now, the context of that, that's a lot of time, I'm not sure if you're eating noodles just to survive for a period of time, and now things are starting to move. So that just that hard work to get where you have today, and the persistence and saying, this is not okay, this is not okay, and refusing to change the subject, and being shrewd and how you go about that. So number one, thank you. Yeah. Secondly is you've got something that's, before we jump into the behind the, like, how did a film guy end up doing this? Just, I want people to hear that you can do this too. For people that are thinking, oh my gosh, I'm inactive. And my inactivity is actually propelling or enabling the problem. So saying nothing means you're part of the problem. Like, silence is not okay. So being active, that's, I want to see. But then how do we do that? So we're going to come back to that. But there's a second thing. So Benji, there's a big launch happening next week. I want you to tell us about that. And then what I want us to do is go behind the scenes, and we'll come back to, I want everybody on this call to better really understand, here's how to engage and be active. Now, whether that's in this cause or not, it doesn't matter, but to be active and to say, my silence is enabling the problem. So I can no longer be silent, but then there's ways. So, this journey of how a film producer, documentary guy gets to be influencing Visa and Mastercard and Discovery and affecting a massive industry that's exploiting people is profound. But let's first touch on what is happening next week and what's your hopes and dreams of that.
Sure. So next week we launch a new documentary called Beyond Fantasy. I had investigated the porn industry over a period of time, making this documentary, producing this documentary, talking with producers, performers, so on and so forth. So that investigation has led to the production of three, it's a documentary miniseries. So 3 individual episodes addressing some of the key issues happening in pornography. So the campaign that we're launching next week alongside of the documentary is called End Teen Porn. And
End Teen Porn.
Exactly. And essentially what has happened is that the porn industry has created this genre called barely legal pornography. It is essentially taking 18-year-old girls, 19-year-old girls, and dressing them up like they're 10 years old and causing them to play the role of somebody who's like a prepubescent teen.
Oh man.
Well, this genre is the most searched, popular genre in pornography of all time. And so we felt like it was really important for us to address that for a few reasons. One, they're glorifying what is essentially, child sex as something erotic and
pedophilia,
desirable. They are then, on the other hand, they are fueling pedophile appetites. And so we felt like it was really important to address this genre. The third thing is that they are recruiting and taking advantage of people who are at a really vulnerable transitional period of life. When people hit 18 years old, they're in a point of transition in life. They're taking on more responsibility for the first time, but they still don't know who they are, what they're doing with their life for the most part. And they're at a vulnerable stage in life. Also, the frontal cortex of our brain, which is the judgment center of our brain, isn't even fully developed until we're in our mid to late 20s.
Right.
So the fact that we've created this genre that is glorifying, normalizing, and promoting the idea of sex with a child as something sexy and erotic is just horrific to me. The fact that it's being made with largely teenagers who had a vulnerable stages of life is also such an injustice, because them appearing in these videos for so many of them just ruins, it just destroys their whole life. Those images aren't out there. And then, because this is fueling pedophiles. So we are advancing a campaign that is seeking to raise the age of consent for entry into pornography from 18 to 21 years old.
Right.
And that would essentially abolish the entire genre of teen pornography. So we launched this campaign next week in conjunction with our film release. And we just believe that this is a really key moment to address something that just hasn't been addressed, and for whatever reason. And again, it's a similar situation to Pornhub where it was so obvious, what was going on and what needed to happen. And so our efforts to address that have become a part of creating a substantial change. And we believe that we are now embarking on this new campaign in a way that's going to bring about a similar change and a similar impact.
Wow. So I'm just blown away. I mean, I've got daughters, I've got a son, I'm naive to so much that has been going on. So what you're doing is you are bringing to the forefront some of the sad and immoral things going on in our culture that silence, and even my silence, has enabled this, and my ignorance. And so it's you're bringing that, and it's like, now I've got no excuse. What will I do with this information? And then you're giving a pathway to people to engage and do something about it. So I think this is amazing. People can jump on, they can see that. Where will that be? Like, where do I find that? If I want to watch that and then get engaged, like super practical, what could I do? I'm like, man, this is not okay. I want to do something. Wonder, where do I watch it, and how do I help this campaign or cause accelerate?
That's great. People can check out our website, exoduscry.com, or if you're on social media, you can follow us on Instagram, handle @ExodusCry. We will have a number of calls to action that we will be inviting people to. One would be just simply signing the petition that we release. This film will be available for free on our Magic Lantern Pictures YouTube channel. So people can check out our YouTube channel online, where we release movies for free. And it's just Magic Lantern Pictures on YouTube. The work of addressing commercial sexual exploitation, sex trafficking, the exploitation going on in porn is a full-time endeavor for us. We operate as a nonprofit organization. So we welcome the financial partnership of individuals that would like to impact the world, leave a legacy on this side of things. We welcome their partnership to help empower us on the front lines while we're tackling these key real world injustices.
So thank you for making it easier for us to do that. And I appreciate that you're doing this. Let's change tact a bit. And for everybody, you watch this, we'll post a link below, exoduscry.com, the Magic Lantern YouTube channel, you also the Instagram channel. You can see that there. We'll post those links in the notes below. And I'd encourage you, personally engage. I've walked with Benji. What they're doing is legitimate. It's real. It's authentic. And they're getting significant result, like world-changing results, not just the cliche. It's actually making a difference. So it's a great investment. So Benji, there's a bunch of people that are like just being woken up to, I had no idea, I've got a good job, I've got kids, my family's safe, I'm in a comfortable environment, it's in a particular community that's pretty, mostly safe. And I'm being awoken to, oh my gosh, how did a simple film arts guy go to be leading an organization that is ridding the world of sexual exploitation?
Yeah, it's such an unlikely story. And, I felt like when I first discovered this issue of human trafficking, that it was, for me, like my burning bush encounter. It's almost indescribable what took place as I began to discover this issue. But yeah, I've just been carrying this burden. And to address this issue, it started, naturally and organically as a filmmaker with traveling the world and investigating this subject matter and filming a documentary about it. I traveled to 19 countries on 4 continents, 42 cities, documenting the rise of this global phenomenon of sex trafficking. And during that time, I was getting my own seminary degree, so to speak. I was getting my own PhD in understanding sex trafficking and how to combat it. And so it was during that time that we began to develop our initiatives and focus on combating this issue. And then when my first documentary, Nefarious Merchant of Souls, came out in 2011, it really just took hold and had a grassroots kind of like viral exposure to the world. It put us in connection with governments around the world. We received consultative status at the United Nations and have been multiple times to the United Nations to speak and address world leaders about this issue. It put us in touch with survivors. It put us in touch with other organizations and other filmmakers. And so we've built this global network of individuals to work together to address the system of exploitation that is happening in our world, and really taking advantage of and exploiting and destroying the lives of our most vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so I think the film piece is just a huge component, because our world is a result of the stories that we tell, and stories that socialize us into the construction of our identity, worldview, values, and all those things. And for a long time now, those stories have really been handed over to large corporate entities that don't have our best interest in mind. They are profit driven. So we're trying to tell stories from a different perspective that are values driven. We're not trying to enrich ourselves. We're not trying to make a bunch of money off these. We're giving these things away. We are trying to tell important stories to help make the world a better place, and particularly a safer place for our children to grow up in. So
thank you. There was a journey from that, you're pursuing this film production, journalism, documentary channel, and then you become across this, and it kind of grips you. You feel like this mandate, just like Wilberforce had this mandate to, this is not okay. There were obviously some choices at that point, because were you naive to think how significant and ruthless this situation is? I mean, I don't know if you have threats on your life, because when you're sabotaging someone's significant income stream, they can do things that aren't very nice. This is human terrorism, exploiting people, and it's funded. It just is crazy. And it's right under our noses. What were some of the challenges that you had to personally overcome to actually go down this journey? Or were you naive and like skipping along thinking, oh, this is going to be amazing, we're going to film this and everybody's going to agree?
It's definitely a step-by-step process of entering into the fray of this battle. I don't think that I assumed initially anything more of myself that I could offer than what we were doing at the time, was just trying to learn about the problem and to capture what we were learning on film to help raise awareness, help educate others. So, but I would say that, yeah, from the outset, it was a difficult situation to penetrate trafficking rings, parts of the world that are under significant influence from organized crime. There's a lot of dangerous elements to the world of trafficking and people who are financially vested in that. And so then, addressing the subject of pornography. It's not just the porn companies, but it's the porn industry shills that are defending this as something, beneficial to our world, as something, like, as I said before, sexually liberating, empowering. So it's been, we faced everything from attempted cancellations by far left outlets, tons of hit pieces, death threats, there's a whole set of challenges. The way I think about it is that systems of oppression always resist movements of freedom. And so I believe that right now with Exodus Cry, we are part of a move of freedom that is trying to expose the evil injustice going on in our world, that is attempting to open prison doors, set captives free, heal the brokenhearted, and the malevolent forces of injustice that are invested in the perpetuation of the status quo of these things are not going to, go silently. And so, yeah, it's been a very intense battle for sure.
So for somebody else saying, I want to step in and engage and make a difference and make the world a better place, what if you could just give us a couple of points? If I want to say, I can write a check out. Like that's the easiest thing in the planet to do. And I encourage everybody to do that. But if I want to engage, and maybe it's in this cause, maybe it's in something else, what are some real practical keys I'm going to engage in seeking the well-being of my community, whether that's fighting injustice, whatever level of that is? What are some real practical keys that if you were speaking to yourself to advise yourself in that journey, what would you say?
I think there's a couple of different tiers of engagement. So there are those who, as they learn about this issue, will be activated into directing their whole life towards addressing this problem. There are those who are called at a career level calling to address this. And for those people, there are lots of ways to be involved. I mean, just at Exodus Cry, for example, we have marketing people, we have accountants, we have filmmakers, we have people working directly with the women. So there's a whole set of the types of people that can be involved in this. For the average person who, has maybe a family, a business that they're running, other things going on in their life, I still think there are on-ramps to be involved in this to help make a difference. Some of the key areas are first through the area of awareness. I think we can all be a part of using our voice to help make a difference. Exodus Cry, we're putting out so many tools and resources and messaging that as people connect in with us on Instagram, we're offering plenty of things that people can just share. We're not asking anyone to recreate the wheel. We've done enough that we can put in people's hands to help affect their sphere of influence. People can even, hold a small group meeting at their house to maybe screen one of our documentaries like Nefarious to say, hey, this is really what's going on in the world, and let's talk about what we can do in our community here to help bring an end to this. People can be engaged in the way of prayer. I really believe that this is first and foremost a spiritual issue. And so we really invite people to pray alongside of us in addressing this issue. So there's the awareness piece, there's the prayer piece. And then, again, looking to how can I deploy my resources to empower the frontline efforts of organizations that are having an impact in real time and space on the ground, boots on the ground. And that's, again, where we would just, welcome the partnership with anybody who would be interested in deploying their resources to help make a difference. And, we welcome conversation around that and strategic partnership and investment to address, the critical injustice that's holding our planet hostage in so many ways right now.
Yeah. And so key thing, go to exoduscry.com and there's from the career to the awareness to the prayer, like those three little things there. And then just straight out funding this. You can do that, all of that. You can find more out there. On the other side of this, Benji, when someone is engaging in something that is ridding the world of evil, is what I would say, just straight out. There's people that are doing that. What's the practical key to stay healthy, whole, and do this over time, not burn out? Just again, in that great cause. I know William Wilberforce was surrounded by his clapping circle, people that they encouraged and empowered one another to actually keep going when 46 years is a long time. Like, you've dedicated your life to this. What's a practical key in actually going the distance, seeing the victory, which you've already accomplished so much? How do you stay strong, healthy, and whole in that process?
Yeah, perseverance is such a big factor when it comes to this work. I mean, it's highly polarizing work. We're coming up against a behemoth of injustice and darkness and perversion. And so the kind of inadvertent effect of that on you can be very polarizing. It can cause some people to run in despair and defeat and hopelessness, and cause others to polarize it to becoming hyper vigilant and controlling. And so I've seen it, I've seen many people burn out in this space. I've had my own struggles. And I think there's a few things that help kind of nurture our spirit as we engage in a battle that's this intense. First and foremost, for me, like taking an example from Wilberforce, he said, above all things, do not neglect God in the secret place of prayer. So I think there's a real spiritually nourishing aspect of this, is realizing that, we're not alone in this battle, that to receive that life that comes from an invigorated spirituality. And so that's a huge part of it. Being in community, we're blessed at Exodus Cry to have such an incredible team of people who are such quality individuals all working together. And so I think we find a lot of solidarity and strength and encouragement from doing this together. Resourcing, myself, others on our team who need it in different seasons, the work of therapists to come alongside of us and help us process, where there might be some emotional decongestion, where there might be
just a little.
yeah, some vicarious trauma, that we've experienced, or there's so many things that go on when you're fighting something that's this intense. And so the role of therapists has been huge. And then I think just generally having life balance, and finding those things in life that help you to naturally decompress and fill yourself up with goodness, with love, with a sense of purpose, meaning, groundedness. So it could be exercise, it could be going out, surfing, it could be taking a vacation, if you need to get your mind off of it for a moment, going out fishing. So I've found some things for me that help to restore my soul, so to speak, at moments where I'm feeling overwhelmed by the darkness, or I'm feeling the intensity of the battle. There's been a relational conflict and I'm kind of falling apart, and but also just normalizing the struggle, like that. Even with all those things said, like, there are going to be seasons of struggle. There's a reason why David said, about God as a shepherd, that he leads us through the valley of the shadow of death. That's a reality in life at times and seasons where it just feels like you're going through this valley of death. And so if you're scandalized by that, it's a much difficult thing to go through. Oh my God, I can't, and instead of, well, this is part of the reality of life, that we're going to go through really difficult seasons. And in that place, we can still trust God and the people that he's placed around us, and the community of support that, we're walking this out with. And so you've been a huge part of that for me here recently, and I'm so grateful for that. Your extended network as well has been very supportive of me. And yeah, I think that those things are keys of walking this out over the long run.
Yeah, and I love that. So I mean, you identified number one is keep your spiritual anchor in place, keeping that priority, because that was what fueled this in the first place, and that's what's going to fuel it over time. So protecting that priority. You secondly said your community, whether that's your team in the office, or you surrounded yourself with champions. So especially when I'm working with a really challenging group of individuals from the exploitation side to the victim side to the passive, like the whole, I've got to have around me some champions that I can run with. Then resourcing the therapists, the counselors, the coaches, the encouragers, the pastors, the people that can actually champion you specifically and keep you going. And then the fourth one you said is this understanding balance. Well, you five. One is the balance of do some fun, have something so that if you're intensely on assignment in a battlefield the entire time, nobody can sustain that. Nobody's set up to do that. I've got to have some outlet valves. Fishing, hiking, running, something in nature resets us. And then finally, and then there's the last one, number 5, was actually, it's okay. We walk through the shadow of death. Don't freak out that you're walking through a shadow of death, of despair. It's actually normal. It's part of life. So if I pretend it's not happening, if I pretend it's not difficult, that's the problem. There's actually help for you in the middle of it. It's part of life. It's messy. So in all of that, this has been incredibly valuable, incredibly helpful. I'm super encouraged by the work that you're doing and the results, and how somebody who's a seemingly simple film producing journalist can actually be part of an organization that's now shifting the narrative globally. And I thank you for that. For those of you listening and watching, please jump on to exoduscry.com. Check out that content. Make sure that you donate. There's resources there. It's a great use of your funds and protects your children and your children's children. So thank you so much, Benji.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Okay, hitting stop now.